three categories of drone operation or UAS operation within UK airspace. We have the open category, the specific category, and the certified category. Now you're on a A2CofC course, so we're only going to look at the open category because the A2CofC is only related to the open category. Okay, so if we move on then, so the open category, if you're flying in the open category and you actually respect and follow the rules of the open category, your drone operation should present low or no risk to third parties. And you may remember the question in the flyer ID that asks you, what is open category operations? Is it high risk, low risk, medium risk, etc.? And the correct answer was low risk operations. But you have to follow the rules to then present low or no risk to uninvolved persons. So there are some basic rules for the open category that everybody must follow. And the three main factors are the maximum takeoff mass of your UAS must be less than 25 kilograms. The unmanned aircraft must be kept within visual line of sight. So we will define this in a moment, but in basic terms, you must be able to see the drone at all times. And the unmanned aircraft must not be flown further than 120 meters, 400 foot from the closest point at the surface of the earth. So on a flat piece of ground, say a football field, the closest point at the surface of the earth under the drone is directly below it. So in the basic terms, do not fly more than 400 feet, which is approximately 120 meters above the ground. Okay. Now we have some other important factors to think about in the open category. You may not drop articles from your drone. So if you wanted to do that delivery system where you're delivering packages around your local trading estate, etc., you may not do that in the open category. You'd have to go up to the specific category. You may not carry dangerous goods with your drone. So if you had chemicals that you needed to transfer, across a farm or something, you wanted to strap them to your drone, in the open category, you may not do this. And only one drone or UAS may be operated at any one time. So you may not fly swarms. In the open category, you may not undertake a drone show, operated by or controlled by one person with, say, 1,000 drones in the sky. So just bear these in mind. So if you're starting to think now, wow, that's easy enough. If we go back to here and back to these rules, that's easy. We've got 3 rules here, a couple of rules here, a few rules here. Easy, let's crack on. Well, these are just the basic overarching rules. We now have to drill down into the rules per weight of drone or weight category of drone. So it says here, the open category is then further divided down into 3 operational subcategories in order to allow different types of operation without the need for a CAA authorization. So what they're saying here is, dependent on the weight of the drone, you have different distances you must stay away from uninvolved persons, and you can just crack on. You don't need to talk to the CAA every time you want to fly. You can just crack on and fly the drone. Okay, so we're going to go into the table now, but the table itself, CAP 2012, I suggest you download it from below in the course, print it out, and then we can look at the table as we go through the next few slides. But the open category is split into 3 operational subcategories. A1, fly over people, A2, fly close to people, and A3, fly far from people. So I would pause the video now, and if you haven't already, download the CAP 2012 document, as you can see on the slide, and print it out ideally, and we can work through this together as we go along. So CAP 2012, you've got the latest version below this video to download from the course. We've got some generic rules in blue on the table here. So no dropping of articles, remember, no carrying of dangerous goods. You must stay in visual line of sight. There are some basic airspace restrictions. So, it's reasonable to say we can't fly anywhere in the UK. So this chart underlined in text there, hyperlink, if you press that on the electronic version that you've just downloaded on your computer, it will send you through to a CAA map of all the places you may not fly your drone without permission. So that's a useful one to look at. And there is something called Skywise. So you may want to sign up for Skywise in relation to drone notifications. Skywise is a civil aviation authority service, and it will tell you about temporary airspace restrictions. Maybe the Royals are flying somewhere and landing. They wouldn't want the drones in the sky or other aircraft. So sometimes they have temporary airspace restrictions. They ban the flight. So the only way we can know about this is through the NOTAM system, which we'll get to, and also Skyways. Okay. Now remember the top one, 120 meters, 400 feet in relation to a height with the drone. Okay. So these are just some basic rules to remember. And if you carry this chart with you at all times when you're out flying, someone comes up to you and says, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. If you're flying legally, obviously, you can show them the chart and say, well, actually, I can, and this is why. So let's go into the chart. So we've got the A1, A2, and A3 subcategories of the open category on the left-hand side. And if we go 4 columns in at the top on A1, we've got a drone here that's up to 250 grams flying weight. So the DJI Mini is a fantastic example of that. So at 249 grams. So the CA expects you in the competency side just to read the user manual, which is fair enough. They want you to read the user manual. And then if we go over to the left, you may fly your drone over uninvolved people, but not over crowds. So you could technically take your drone to the beach, to the local high street, park, etc., and start flying your under 250 gram drone around. Remember Article 241 of the Air Navigation Order. You may not endanger persons or property with your drone, so just bear that one in mind. But you could fly it around, and as long as you're not being negligent or endangering anybody and not in a restricted area, you would be fine. So that's drones up to 250 grams. What if you bought yourself a 250 gram drone to 500 grams? Sorry, so 250 to 500 gram drones. So maybe the Avatar, I think, is 300 odd grams. So we're going slightly up the weight here. So in the system, the CAA system, the heavier you are, the more restrictive it is. So if you had yourself a 250 gram to 500 gram UAS, the Parrot Anafi is a good example of another drone that's about 300 grams. The CAA is saying on the right hand side, if we look down through the competency, read the user manual, it says now online training, foundation test. So that's your flyer ID, operator ID, etc. Self-practical training, and then it says here A2CofC theoretical test. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated. We need, or you need to have yourself an A2CofC certificate, and you're on the course now, so you're nearly there. And if you've got this A2CofC certificate with your 250 to 500 gram drone, you may fly it to the rules on the left. So no intentional flight over uninvolved persons. So you could fly it down the high street, down the park, etc., but you may not intentionally overfly directly overhead an uninvolved person. You could offset and fly around them, etc., but not overhead. But the question is now, well, what if you have your 250 to 500 gram drone as you're watching this course? You do not have an A2CofC. You're on the course to get one. So if you're in this position, then you must fly the drone to the A3 subcategory first, and then once you get your A2CofC, then you can fly it down to the no intentional flight over uninvolved persons. So let's imagine you've got your 300 gram drone, you're on this course. What rules must you follow in the open category? Well, you must follow the A3. So no involved people present within the area of flight, maintain 50 meters separation from any uninvolved persons, which is fair enough. But the next one, no flight within 150 meters horizontally of residential, commercial, industrial, or recreational areas. So that is very restrictive. You've got a 300 gram drone. You've got no A2CofC. You must stay 150 meters away from those residential, commercial, industrial, or recreational areas. So you're stuck out in the countryside, basically. You get yourself an A2CofC, then that relaxes the rules to the no intentional flight over uninvolved persons. So it's quite a nice system. You prove competence by doing the A2CofC test, getting your A2CofC, and then it relaxes the rules there. How about if we have a drone from 500 grams up to 2 kilograms flying weight? So your Phantom 4s, your Mavic 3s, Mavic 2 Pros. You know, we've got a large amount of drones that are around about the 800 to 1 kilogram range. So that fits in that A2 row here. So the same system applies. If you don't have an A2CofC, you must fly it to the A3 rules that we've just been through. Once you get your A2CofC certificate, then you may fly no closer than 50 meters horizontally from uninvolved persons. So you may fly within these built up areas, these residential, commercial, industrial, recreational areas, but you must stay more than 50 meters horizontally from uninvolved persons. And remember, that's a horizontal distance. Okay, so just bear that one in mind. That's a cylinder, like a toilet roll, you know, 50 meters radius up to space around every uninvolved person. Okay, so it's very difficult in a built-up area to maintain a 50-meter horizontal distance from uninvolved persons. Now, if you had a drone over 2 kilograms up to 25, so say you bought yourself the Inspire 2 or 3, etc., at 4 or 5 kilograms, or you had a bigger rig, then whether you have an A2CofC or not makes no difference. You must always follow the rules of the A3 subcategory. So stay 50 meters from uninvolved persons, but the killer to this is the no flight within 150 meters horizontally of in residential, commercial, industrial, or recreational areas. So just bear that one in mind. If you've got a heavier drone, you may need to go up to the specific category to be able to fly it with use. Okay, so just bear in mind, Skywise will tell you when CAP 2012 gets updated. So if they do an update, make sure you've got the latest version of the table. All right. So just another thing to bear in mind, you may have read on Google, etc., about these C-class drones. These are the new drones that the Civil Aviation Authority had hoped that had been built, that the new regulations were based on. The C-class drones are ultra-safe drones, and they would have a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 stamped on the top of the drone. And if they were part of these ultra-safe new breed of drones, then obviously the distances from uninvolved peoples would have been, you know, massively reduced. But at present, these have not been built, so you can't get one at the moment in relation to flying in the UK. The CA will let you know, or will let you know when they do finally come out. But we fly legacy drones to our CAP 2012 table. So just bear that one in mind. If you read anything on these C drones, C-class drones, for the moment, they're not out in the system. So just, I wouldn't waste your time. Okay. So as it says here in the slide, there are none at present. There are no C-class drones at present. So the basic rules in the table, you can see here on the third column across, it says privately built, etc., or placed on the market before the 1st of January 2026. And that's all the way down through the table. So what the CA is saying here, these rules in the CAP 2012 are valid up to the 1st of January 2026. Hopefully, before the 1st of January 2026, then the new C-class drones will be manufactured and come in. And then obviously this table will be amended to suit the new C-class drones and show the distances they must keep from uninvolved persons. And then it will also show these legacy drones, the distances. But when the new C-class drones do come in, they will be you will be allowed to fly a lot closer to uninvolved people because the drones are built safer, shrouded propellers, lower noise, anti-collision all round, etc., etc. So just bear in mind that the rules may change on the 1st of January 2026. If the C-class drones haven't come in, then they'll just extend that rule change maybe to 2028, 2030, etc. Okay, so just bear that one in mind. Now, we need to think about this document that's come out called the Acceptable Means of Compliance, the AMC document, and that's referred to in the title of the regulations. So let's just look at visual line of sight. So the table, as we saw, it states that you must remain visual line of sight with your drone at all times whilst flying in the open category. And the definition of visual line of sight, or a visual line of sight operation, is that a type of UAS operation in which the remote pilot is able to maintain continuous, unaided visual contact with the unmanned aircraft, allowing the remote pilot to control the flight path of the unmanned aircraft in relation to other aircraft, people, and obstacles for the purpose of avoiding collisions. So that's fantastic. And up until the AMC came in, as long as we could see the drone, even if it was a little spot in the sky, we would be within a visual line of sight operation. You know, a teeny little speck in the sky, we can see it, we can control it, we can crack on. Now, the Acceptable Means of Compliance sets out what the CA believe that you should do in order to remain visual line of sight. So there's no sort of grey area. They're telling you exactly what you must do to remain visual line of sight. So the definition of visual line of sight operation in relation to the Acceptable Means of Compliance is it's in order to control the visual flight path of the unmanned aircraft, it must be kept within a suitable distance of the remote pilot such that they can monitor the aircraft's position, orientation, and note that I put that in red underlined there, and the surrounding airspace at all times. So to remain visual line of sight, if we follow the acceptable means of compliance definition or guidance notes, we must be able to orientate the drone at all times. So just remember, if you're out flying with your Mini and maybe you're 100 meters away, you should be able to look at that drone and say, right, yes, the nose is pointing east or west, etc., etc. Now, reality is, we go out with the Minis, we can probably orientate it to 40 meters or 50 meters. If someone spun the drone round and round and round, would you not look in? And then you looked up at the drone, you would be expected to be able to orientate it and tell, what heading that drone's on or where it's pointing. So just bear that one in mind when you're out flying with a Mini or a smaller drone. This orientation rule in the AMC is in relation to any drone that you fly in the open category. So just always bear that in mind, but it's a lot harder with a DJI Mini to orientate these small crafts. So just bear that one in mind in relation to staying legal. Okay. So you can see in the table here, just to recap, that it says visual line of sight must be able to clearly see the unmanned aircraft at all times, etc. So you must be able to orientate it in relation to the CA's acceptable means of compliance. So yeah, to work your way through the table, look at what drone you've got, just make sure you're happy with where you are, where you sit within the table. So you can now see why the Minis are very, very popular, because there's no training or testing requirement. You just need to read the user manual and just fly over uninvolved people, but not over crowds. So you might say, well, what is a crowd of persons? How do I know if I'm flying over a crowd? And, with your Mini, you're not allowed to fly over a crowd of people. So crowd and assemblies of people is defined the same in relation to the CAA. So they are gatherings where persons are unable to move away due to the density of the people present. So if you've got a large group of people all squashed in and someone can't move through them quickly, that's defined as a crowd. So like your Glastonbury Festival, maybe crowd front near the stage, etc., etc. So there are some examples the CAA gives: sports, cultural, religious events, music festivals, marches, rallies, parties, carnivals, etc. So just bear in mind, though, the upper definition. You might be at a music festival, but if everybody's spaced out 10 foot, then it wouldn't technically be a crowd, because you could move through that crowd quite easily. So just bear that in mind, okay, when flying in more busy areas. Now, you'll see in the table, if you just reference the table now, all the rules are in relation really to about staying away from uninvolved persons. So what is an uninvolved person? Well, they're not participating in the drone operation, or they're not aware of the instructions or safety precautions given by the unmanned aircraft system operator. So that means a random person, a shopper, a kid in the park, etc., etc. They need to be protected from your drone. So you can make them involved, though. So say you had a 1 kilogram drone and an A2CofC. It states that you must stay 50 meters horizontally from uninvolved persons. So maybe you have a job where you need to come within 50 meters of, say, horizontally of a dog walker. So you could go up to that dog walker, explain the risks that the drone presents to them and the dog, and you could then ask them to become an involved person. So they have the right to say no, and if they do say no, then you cannot affect their enjoyment of their day out, etc., with the dog. But if they say yes, you may fly as close as safely possible to them, to whatever they agree. But remember, under Article 241, you may not endanger them with your drone. So all's not lost, especially in relation to flying in the open category with, say, 800, 900, 1 kilogram drones, your Mavic 3s, etc. But remember, to make persons involved, you must explain the risks to them. It's not good enough just you saying, popping a sign up at a wedding saying drones will be, my 1 kilogram drone will be flying around you. Or some people can't read, some people may not speak English, etc., etc. You must talk to them all and make sure they understand the risks that are presented to them. Okay, so just bear that one in mind. Just a quick note then on who are the UK Civil Aviation Authority. We always refer to them as the CAA. Well, we train on their behalf. but they are the authority who is the independent UK airspace regulator. So they do have people checking up on YouTube videos, etc., on complaints, etc. And if you are found to have been broken the rules, you might lose your A2CofC, may have a fine, have a banning notice, etc. So just bear in mind, life is so much easier if you just follow the rules, follow the open category table, etc., etc. And if you do follow those rules, the concept of the open category is you will be a low to no risk flyer in relation to the risks you pose to uninvolved persons. Okay, that's fantastic. So that's the end of this presentation. And you can move on to the next one. Just bear in mind the links and the various downloads below this video. You should open them all up, have a little look, and then once done, try the quiz, and then you can move on to the next presentation.